My wife and I have put all of our life savings into projects that we care about. These include projects like a hedge fund for the poor, or discovering stage 0 detection mechanisms for cancer. All of these projects are done at T-Labs, our company. And a while ago, we decided to look at businesses that have grown exponentially in the last 2 decades. The idea was we could take inspiration and learn from these businesses that have experienced fantastic growth, and maybe we could grow our own businesses and nonprofit initiatives exponentially. So we looked at 300 businesses, more than 300 businesses, and pretty compelling patterns emerged. The exponential business model framework is born through that study. So in the next 8 hours, I'm going to walk you through the key highlights from our research. No, in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to share with you about a quarter of the exponential business models that we discovered, plus some underlying principles that are common to all of them. But before we even talk about exponential business models, let's talk about the first exponential innovation. Let's time travel back in history. What do you guys think was the first exponential innovation? What comes to mind? Shout them out. Electricity, pretty exponential. Go further back. What else? Fire, pretty good guess. Keep going. Did I hear marriage over there? Yeah, pretty exponential. I heard wheel as well. I think that is correct. Wheel was truly an exponential innovation. And once the wheel shows up, we see massive transformation in transportation. But here's a question. What did people do before the wheel? Have you ever thought about this? Was it all just drag and drop? Why did it take us so long to invent the wheel? The wheel was not invented until 3500 BC. And I like to think that any caveman knew that round objects rolled. That's pretty obvious. So why did it take so long for the wheel to be invented? It turns out the invention of the wheel was not very difficult. It was actually the axle that was very complicated to figure out. The invention of the axle is that key enabling move that enables this exponential innovation. So as we looked at these 300 businesses and we looked for patterns, we searched for the axle. We searched for that key enabling innovation that unleashed the exponential business models. And what we saw was that the digital twin was the axle. The one innovation that enabled every single model we looked at. Think about any person in the world, any piece of property. Think about any process in our physical universe, and ask yourself whether it has a digital representation. If it doesn't, go capture that, go build it. Chances are you should also recognize that you're sitting on top of what could potentially become an exponential business model. The digital twin is a very powerful concept, and by the way, this also happens to explain the vast majority of disruption stories that we looked at. It turns out almost every disruption story out there is about somebody who has figured out a way to use a new digital twin and come up with a way to basically deliver exponential value. It's pretty remarkable. Now, the moment you have the digital twin, you can apply exponential technologies to it. And this is what unleashes the exponential value delivery. That's what is going to give you the exponential business model. Let's try this formula for a second. I want you to think about a bicycle accident. Think about a bicycle accident. What if we could look at thousands of accidents and create a near-perfect digital twin of the 1 second before a human being falls from the bicycle? A company out of Sweden did exactly that. This airbag inflates in 1/10 of a second. You want to see that again? Yeah. Pretty amazing. How many people believe this is safer than a helmet? Yeah, in fact, it's not only safer, it is 8 times safer than a helmet. And this has been verified at Stanford University and many other locations. What is amazing is, in 1/10 of a second, this thing deploys. And if you're wearing a helmet and you're in a bike accident involving head impact, there's a 90% chance that you will end up with head trauma. With this, it is 2%. Goes from 90% to 2%. Pretty incredible. And Hoofding, this innovation, belongs to an exponential business model class that we call the certainty engine. These are businesses that are using digital twins to protect you from physical, biological, digital, and cyber harm. They're adding certainty against the backdrop of uncertainty in our world. Some of our favorite examples from this category: Hoofding, Discovery Insurance, and Darktrace. Darktrace is a cybersecurity company that uses AI, in fact, unsupervised machine learning, to create a digital twin of the physical structure of your network, of the human behavior using the network, and also the software. It sits there, it watches it, it creates a baseline digital twin of everything that is going on, and it detects deviations from it. And that is how it prevents threats from reaching you. One of our own projects at T-Labs that I mentioned is focused on stage 0 detection of cancer. Because if you detect cancer that early, people tend to not die from cancer. Survival rates shoot up. We call this zeromics. And the key idea here that is beginning to enable us to do this, to create an early warning system, is the fact that we're beginning to be able to create a digital twin of your biochemistry. And over time, by keeping track of what is changing in your biochemistry, comparing it to your baseline, the early warning system emerges very, very effectively. Now, let's try this with something else. If you have a digital twin of the automobile, of course you can create a self-driving car. But it turns out long before self-driving cars show up, this is actually a very useful exercise. A company in South Africa called Discovery South Africa Insurance is in the insurance business, and they sell automobile policies. They did something innovative. They created a telematics unit, and they gave it to their customers. This is a device that creates a digital twin of the car, of the state of the car, and it tracks it in real time. Liesel is a customer of Discovery. She was involved in an accident. But before the accident, her car was equipped with the Vitality Drive sensor. This is a telematics device that Discovery puts in cars. And here she is talking about her accident.
The car behind me hit me so hard I was forced under a bus, and there was smoke everywhere. I tried to get out, but both doors were jammed. I jumped out the back door, and the first thing I did was phone my mom. Whilst I was talking to her, emergency services arrived. The force of my accident alerted Discovery Insure, and they immediately sent help. The paramedic rushed up to me, he grabbed my arm just as I passed out, and when I came to, I was safely in the ambulance.
The vast majority of Discovery customers who are in car accidents never have to call an ambulance. The device, which carries a digital twin of the car, does it for them automatically. But it turns out, the moment you have the telematics device in the car, you can go well beyond creating a digital twin of the car. You can actually create a digital twin of driver behavior, right? Because the device is tracking braking, acceleration, cornering, speed, all sorts of stuff. And Discovery decided to use this information. In fact, they noticed that if you look at driver behavior, it turns out insurance is completely mispriced. It does not reflect the risk of each driver. And then they decided to dynamically price insurance based on driver behavior, which was fantastic. There are people in South Africa who get back about 50% of their weekly fuel cost in refunds because this is dynamically priced based on how good a driver you are. But they went further. They actually provide that digital twin of your behavior to the individual. So you get that feedback loop. And in doing that, they started shaping driver behavior. In fact, they reduced their loss ratio by 17%. For those of you in the insurance industry, you know this is an incredible result. And this mechanism of quantifying behavior and nudging it in the right direction is at the core of the next paradigm shift we discovered. We call it the behavioral shaper business model. Quantify and nudge. Thanks to these digital twins, there's a revolution happening in human behavioral shaping. Some of my favorite examples in this category include Upright, which creates a digital twin of your posture and it gives you feedback in real time. Fitbit, as you all probably know, tracks your activity level, your sleep level, your heart rate, all sorts of stuff, and it gives you feedback as well. Noom is fascinating because it works with devices like Fitbit, but it also makes you log your own food consumption patterns, and it pairs you up with a human coach. And all of that information, the digital twinning process plus the human touch of the coach, creates incredible results. In fact, they have delivered phenomenal insights. 60% of the people who lose weight on Noom keep it off for more than a year. This is about 6 times the national average in the United States. Pretty remarkable. Now, the real question is whether we can learn anything from our clothing. And it turns out the answer is yes. A company called Wearable X has created a pair of pants that will teach you yoga. They have a whole bunch of sensors in the leggings, and basically it gets activated as it creates a digital twin of your posture, and it gives you feedback. It creates vibrations in the direction of correcting your posture. They claim this can take you from novice all the way to pro level, and that is pretty remarkable as well. But really, the trophy in this category of exponential business models goes to this next business. Have a look.
More than 40% of our lives are spent in habit. For most of us, that time is wasted. The secret to transformation is not to try harder. It's to replace bad habits with the habits of excellence. If you wanted to transform yourself, how would you start? First, identify the habits that hold you back. Pair them with a negative stimulus, like electric shock. Each surge of voltage trains your brain and weakens the neural connection until the bad habit is severed. Next, replace the bad habit with a positive one. Reward yourself when you complete your daily goal. Commit to a penalty if you fail. The fear of loss stimulates your basal ganglia, while the chance of reward motivates your prefrontal cortex. In fewer than 30 days, the action becomes a habit. Pavlok is the first system designed to help you build good habits and break bad ones. Earn rewards when you succeed, pay the price when you fail, and experience the electric shock that keeps you on track.
Singularity University and T-Labs have partnered with Pavlok to give you a chance to experience behavioral shaping firsthand. All of your chairs are equipped with a Pavlok device. In the next 10 seconds, you're all going to get a shock. No. If you zoom out and you look at the big picture of what is happening with business models involving products and services, something else is going on that is pretty consistent. You're taking a pretty predictable evolutionary path. First of all, think of any product or service and ask yourself whether the virtual digital connected version of it exists. If not, go build it immediately. That's an immediate source of value. We're also seeing the rise of just-in-time delivery, the Uberization of many different industries, the fact that people want what they want exactly when they want it. And also, because of the fact that the marginal cost of supply is dropping so much, suddenly it doesn't cost as much to hyper-customize your value proposition. And this is where we can go after the long tail of the market. But really, the silent revolution that is happening with products and services is the fact that demand is no longer looking for mere products and services. Demand is now demanding performance. That's what customers want. So we're seeing this shift away from products and services towards performance. And one of my favorite examples of what selling performance looks like involves the digital twin of something pretty funny. Let me set it up for you. Let's say you are the CEO of a theater company in Spain, and you focus on comedy theater. Every night you run comedy shows at your theaters. One morning you wake up and you realize that the government has increased the tax rate from 8% to 21%. Translation, tonight nobody's going to show up. What do you do? How do you respond to this external shock? Think about it for 5 seconds, and then I'll show you exactly what these guys did. All right, have a look.
Pay per laugh, the first comedy shows where you only pay for what you consume. We fitted each seat with a facial recognition system that detects the smile and proposed the following deal to spectators. Entrance will be totally free. If the show produces no laughs, you don't pay anything. However, if you laugh, you have to pay for each smile. Each smile produced is worth 30 euro cents, something that in this day and age is quite a reasonable price. At the end of the show, the spectator could check their laughter account before paying and even share it on social networks. And so that no one would cry for having laughed more than they could afford, the maximum amount to pay was 80 laughs for 24 euros. The average price of the ticket increased by 6 euros. The system was covered by the main national media outlets, and this produced 35% more spectators. Each pay-per-laugh show produced 28,000 euros more ticket money than was normally taken. Currently, the system is being copied in other theatres in Spain. A mobile phone app was created as a system of payment, and the first season ticket was launched for the number of laughs not shown.
If you're going to a comedy show, what is your biggest risk? What if it's not funny? And that's exactly what these guys de-risked. How did they do it? They created a digital twin of a person laughing. Now, even if you're not selling performance directly, this next category of exponential business models is going to come after you. You're still exposed to the long-term memory of the internet. We call this the accountability engine. And what we're noticing is the digital twin of your reputation is now the most powerful weapon against businesses that are not delivering performance, because that is being tracked online. And the accountability engine has long gone away from merely people rating companies, like we've seen with Yelp or Glassdoor. We now have platforms that allow people to rate people. Platforms like People, P-E-E-P. And this sounds pretty uncomfortable, doesn't it? In fact, these guys have faced a lot of backlash because of the way these platforms operate. But it's one of those ideas that I believe makes a lot of sense, not in the forecast, but rather in the retrocast. In 10 years' time, it'll be very strange if this feedback loop did not exist between people. I think in the long term, it'll make the world a better place. It'll increase our accountability towards each other. But how we get there is very tricky. Ultimately, the best form of accountability is you towards yourself, when you commit to making something happen and you actually go ahead and make it happen. Imagine going to a gym that pays you every time you go because they're charging people who said they would go and they didn't show up. Think about that. This is at the core of the next revolution we're noticing with business models. And we call this the commitment pooling model. Commitment pooling means that because of digital twins, we're now able to have new types of contracts, typically public contracts that is between you and the public. One of my favorite examples is a platform called Stick. On Stick, people bet against themselves and they commit to quitting smoking, they commit to losing weight, they commit to going to the gym. Currently, there is about $31 million on the line of people who have publicly committed to losing weight, going to the gym, not smoking. They claim that around 20 million cigarettes have not been smoking because of Stick. So very interesting model. Another favorite is Kiva, which is a microfinance loan, where it can give small loans, as small as $25, I believe, to individuals in developing countries. But what is unique is that these individuals have a public profile. And this creates that accountability mechanism. It creates commitment pooling. To this day, these guys have enabled $1.3 billion in loans to these individuals in underserved markets. And the default rate on Kiva, you might be interested to know, is actually lower than the average American borrower. And that is thanks to commitment pooling. Now, you guys remember Discovery. Discovery, at this stage, has already disrupted one industry, the auto insurance industry, by creating a digital twin of the car and the driving behavior of the individual. So they started thinking, where else could they apply the power of the digital twin to their business model? What they did was very simple but extremely effective. They started giving out free Apple Watches to their customers to track their biology, activity, and health. In doing this, they created a digital twin of the health and wellness of the individual. Almost immediately, they saw a 2x rise in activity level, and they also unleashed a paradigm shift within the insurance model. Historically, insurance is always about risk pooling. That is the entire driving mechanism. Here, we're seeing a shift towards commitment pooling, where you're tapping into the digital twin of a group of people committing. And the watch has done an incredible job. So, by now, they're 2 for 2. They've disrupted health insurance, which is now dynamically priced. They have disrupted auto insurance, and they're searching for their next domain to disrupt. What would you have done at this stage if you were in their shoes? Think about this for a few seconds, and then I'll show you what exactly they did. Ready? Here we go. Of course they created a bank. At this stage, these guys are so amazing at creating digital twins of driving behavior and health behavior that creating a digital twin of your financial behavior is a small sidestep. And their entry into the banking sector is an example of the great convergence. The fact that if you're in any one of these industries today, the main core competency that you need is management and analysis of digital twins. The moment you figure it out in one industry, it's a small sidestep to switch over and start offering something else in an adjacent industry. This means that in a few years, because of the great convergence, you're not going to say that you're a banking company or an insurance company. You're going to say, we're a technology company that does banking, that does insurance. So what is the technology-first version of your industry? And now's the time to think about it, because pretty quickly, we're going to see this industrial convergence in the next decade. Now, let me ask you, in order to prepare for this convergence, we need to understand one core concept. How many people believe that the Earth revolves around the sun? I'm a little concerned about the hands that are not going up. Thank you. For hundreds of years, the received wisdom, the accepted model of our solar system looked like this, right? The planets and the sun revolved around the Earth. Of course, this is an incorrect model. The moment you put the sun back in the center, the model becomes exponentially simpler and more elegant. Here, the sun really is your customer. The vast majority of companies today believe that they are the center of the universe. And this creates an amazing opportunity for disruption, because they keep getting disrupted by companies that show up and they put the customer back in the center. In fact, this is such a prevalent pattern that we think is at the core of the next revolution, the rise of the reorbiter business model. The focus here is on recentering industries around the customer. And nothing demonstrates the reorbiter business model better than the banking industry and what is happening right now. How many people have heard of Ant Financial? Great. Ant Financial is a 15-year-old startup, is an offshoot of Alibaba, and Bank of America is a 95-year-old institution, one of the largest banks in the United States. Let's compare how these guys do business today. In terms of how long it takes Ant Financial, Bank of America, to approve a small business loan, 20 days. Ant Financial takes about 2 seconds. What about this? Automatic allocation of inactive capital, when you have money in your account that is just sitting there. Does Bank of America allocate it based on your predefined investment strategy? Never. You will not even get a call. What about Ant Financial? Instantly. it automatically comes with their account types. What is the minimum balance required for activation of this level of wealth management activity? For Bank of America, you need to have at least $3 million in your account to even get a phone call. For Ant Financial, it begins instantly with 14 cents. The business model of Bank of America is products. That's why they need around 4,000 branches. The business model of Ant Financial, of course, is a platform. They have 0 branches. And how many customers does Bank of America manage? Around 70 million. Ant Financial, 700 million. This demonstrates the power of the next paradigm shift we're noticing in business models, the rise of platforms. And platforms are truly remarkable. In our exonomics book, Elena and I define a platform as a value bridge. You're creating a bridge connecting multiple sides of the market. And most importantly, you should resist the temptation to become one side of the market. You want to be the bridge and facilitate the flow of value. Regardless of the type of platform you are going after the most valuable asset class in any business today, network effects. Specifically, there are 3 types of platforms that we have identified. The typical multi-sided platform like Tinder operates by connecting multiple sides of the market. But you can go one step further. If you have multiple platforms, you can interlock them and create what we call an ecosystem. Amazon and WeChat are examples of this. On Amazon, you can basically buy books and other stuff. You can watch a lot of Amazon Prime. You can also run your website on their servers. And all of these individual platforms are interlinked. And that is why we call it an ecosystem. Now, the next type of platform, something that we call the operating system, is about to be developed. We have not seen any current examples of this yet, but we believe the next decade is going to be all about operating systems. These are going to be incredibly powerful business models. And what is an operating system? Here, we've all seen version 1 of operating systems. Something like Microsoft Windows is an example of an operating system. What we're referring to here is a second iteration, where you have multiple technologies connecting multiple sides of the market. So it is a platform, but then the platform goes to the background and it becomes invisible. It's an invisible platform. Like I said, we have not found any examples yet, but we've identified 27 domains that we believe in the next decade are going to be dominated by operating systems. Facebook's Libra project is probably one of the first true attempts at creating an operating system. But whatever shape or form they take, and whether or not this takes off is an open question, platforms like this progressively have more and more market power and more data intensity. So operating systems are at the top of the economic market power chain. And it's also operating systems that are going to enable the next version of the internet, something that we call the BlakeNet. Once you have all sorts of digital twins, you're going to need a new type of internet to manage the complexity and optimize. BlakeNet stands for blockchain, AI, and quantum. On the BlakeNet, you're going to have accountability via the blockchain or some other distributed ledger technology. You're going to have automation with AI and optimization at levels we have never seen before using quantum computing. Ladies and gentlemen, the name is probably not going to stick. I'm not going to be heartbroken. But whatever we end up calling it, the point here is that the BlakeNet will do to the internet what the internet did to the library. And we're talking about a massive paradigm shift. But we're also beginning to understand the impact of platforms on our day-to-day lives. We're noticing that if we let them, they have a tendency to take over our lives. Domo creates a wonderful report every year around what happens in 1 minute, in the course of 1 minute span of time. So in 1 minute this year, around 188 million emails are sent. During that 1 minute, Netflix streams about 695,000 hours of video content. People are watching about 700,000 hours of video content every minute on Netflix. Every minute on Tinder, about 1 million people are getting rejected. About 10,000 rides are completed on Uber. This sheer impact, the sheer scale of this impact is giving rise to the next paradigm shift in business models. We're beginning to notice the impact of the attention economy. All of these platforms are fighting for your attention, and we're beginning to understand that if you can draw attention to something, you can turn that into cash. Truly powerful how the attention engine works. We used to talk about lifetime value of a customer. Today, a better measure is lifetime attention of a customer. And nobody really understood the true emergence of the attention engine better than Alex 2. A few years ago, Alex 2 was really interested in making $1 million. He wanted it badly. So what he did was he created a website called the $1 Million Homepage. On this website, he created one block of pixels, 1,000 pixels horizontally, 1,000 pixels vertically. And he said, all right, this is how I'm going to make my $1 million. I'm going to sell each pixel for $1. And he did. It took merely 5 months for the entire mesh of pixels to be sold out, because it was such a crazy idea that it was drawing more and more attention. Now, today you might be interested to know that Alex runs a meditation company. And in fact, a few months ago, they became a $1 billion company, from $1 million to $1 billion. And that's good, because now more than ever, we need meditation. 90% of all recorded data was created in the last 2 years. We're seeing an exponential growth in the amount of data and information that is available. One of the interesting insights from our Zeromics project, our cancer project, is that we noticed that every time we looked at an area of research and then came back to it about a month later, regardless of how small and specialized the topic was, there was an entire range of new research that was completed, a ton of new research. This was really strange to us because of the sheer speed of how fast this was happening. It turns out people have actually quantified the pace with which medical knowledge is growing. Right now, medical knowledge is doubling every 80 days. Every 80 days. Is your doctor keeping up with this? Probably not. Which is why this next revolution in business models is going to help. Because of this exponential growth in information, there's latent demand for the summary engine. We're beginning to realize that information does not equal knowledge. The summary engine converts this abundance of information into actionable insights. One of my favorite platforms is GetAbstract. GetAbstract is the world's largest collection of book summaries. I'm noticing that I don't have enough time to read every book that I want. So I start with a summary, and then if it's interesting, I go deeper and pick up the book. Another favorite project is Talk to Books. This is a Google project spearheaded by our own Ray Kurzweil. And it allows you to search inside books, not just for phrases that you're interested in, but the context of those phrases. Highly recommend you try them out. Now, the attention economy is also giving rise to some problems. We need to be honest about this. We looked at the average income of a teacher, a scientist, and an engineer. This is what the average American teacher, engineer, and scientist make. And this is Kim Kardashian. That is the equivalent of 1,500 scientists, 1,500 engineers, and 1,500 teachers working for an entire year. Don't get me wrong, nothing against Kim. I mean, she's amazing. Look at what she can do with her. We get what we celebrate. I think we need to upgrade our collective imagination. The question is she adding that much value? The equivalent of 4,500 people working hard for an entire year? I don't think so. The Kardashians are truly benefiting from the attention economy. But the same mechanisms that are giving them attention are actually beginning to do something wonderful. They're tuning us into the reality of systemic problems that we have. They're beginning to shed light on major societal issues that we need to fix, which is why we're quite excited to see the emergence of the next exponential business model. We call it the Gapminder model. This is where businesses are focused on the delta, the gap between the world that we have and the world that we want. Areas of focus are upward mobility, rights and freedoms, distribution of opportunity, wellness of the planet. And this is truly, truly powerful, and it is gaining a lot of momentum, both with businesses that are Gapminder businesses, but also with regular businesses that pay attention to the gap. One of my favorite examples is the Economy. This is the CEO talking about one of their projects.
Instead of introducing a premium credit card with the typical benefits that encourages further mass consumption, Doconomy did the opposite by launching Do Black, the world's first credit card with a carbon limit. Simply put, it's the first credit card ever to stop you from overspending, not based on your available funds, but rather on the levels of CO2 emissions caused by your consumption. Do Black helps you track your climate impact and ensures that you reduce it by 50% in line with the UN 2030 recommendation.
It's pretty encouraging. And if you zoom out and you look at the big picture, we truly live in an amazing world. There's tremendous opportunities for innovation. There's tremendous opportunities for creating new business models that deliver not only financial return, but societal impact. But as we explore these opportunities, we need to remember one key idea, I believe. Intelligence is no longer enough. If the world is changing exponentially faster and faster, then your ability to respond to change is the strongest predictor of your success. Up until now, we never really had the mechanism for quantifying adaptability. But that has been our focus for the last few years at T-Labs. We've created the concept of AQ for adaptability quotient. And we've now created mechanisms to quantify adaptability in individuals and in teams. And the great news here is that we are convinced that AQ, unlike IQ, is highly coachable. You're not stuck with it. You can actually boost it, and that's how we help companies boost their own adaptability and individual adaptability. The very thing that made you successful in the past is probably not going to be the thing that makes you successful in the future. In fact, quite often the opposite. The things that made you successful in the past gets in the way of your future success. Unlearning is emerging as a new core competency. We run a service at T-Labs called Rent a Disruptor. And there's one thing we have learned about how to help companies find disruptive threats and opportunities. And that is, you start with the digital twin. You have to start with the question of the people your business model touches, the processes, the properties it touches. Do they have a digital representation? Because the moment you have the digital twin, you can unleash the power of these 7 drivers of exponential business models. And that is truly unique. This has never been possible before. And it is thanks to exponential technologies that we can even venture in this direction. I believe we're going to understand digital twins as a massive mirror unto our societies and our lives. It's a huge mirror that reflects back to us our reality, because currently we do not understand our own reality very well. This is why we look back on the invention of the mirror. It turns out the mirror in its current form, the silver-coated glass, was not invented until the 15th century. This is the first mass market version of the mirror. And the moment the mirror is mass produced, society completely goes through a paradigm shift. This is documented. People start recording their birth dates after the mirror shows up. Demand for privacy goes up. First-person novels become a thing. And demand for portraits shoot up exponentially. Now, what about the type of mirror that we are talking about? What about the digital twin? How will the emergence of this new type of mirror impact our lives, impact our societies? I believe the digital twin is going to allow us to move away from non-functioning models of governance to a more liquid model of democracy. Hopefully, we'll move away from wars towards peace as we realize the things that bind us together are much stronger than the things that drive us apart. I believe we're also going to see a better approach to shared abundance, away from dysfunctional capitalism towards abundance for all, without compromising the entrepreneurial spirit. And most importantly, the emergence of this mirror, I believe, will give rise to lowering of egos, but better understanding of kindness. It's really strange to think that a mirror could lower your ego. But as we understand the immensity of the human experience and the human condition, I think that is when we are going to move away from misunderstanding kindness for weakness. Because kindness is the most powerful force driving human behavior. As an economist, I always joke that it is very uncool for me to end on a positive note. I have to warn you about something. But the truth is, I'm quite excited. I've shared with you about a quarter of the business models we've identified, exponential business models, and some of the founding principles. But there's one area that I am still concerned about, and that is a crisis of imagination. A crisis of imagination. Today, thanks to these exponential technologies, our reach exceeds beyond our imagination. We can do so much more than we realize, but most of us don't realize it. In a way, the biggest risk is not thinking big enough. And when you do think bigger, something magical will happen, which is why I want to share with you my favorite quote of all time. But first, if something that you saw resonated with you and you'd like a copy of the slides, happy to share them. Feel free to drop a note to that address. If you'd like to find out more about our work around exponential business models, you can check out tlabs.com/xpm. And to keep in touch with me, I'd love to hear from you. That's my personal email address. Let me share with you my favorite quote of all time. Intelligence is hitting a target that nobody else can. Genius is hitting a target that nobody else can see. When you think outside the box, when you try to innovate, when you go exponential, realize that for a while, people are not going to understand the target you're trying to hit. But if you stay with it, the genius will be revealed. You guys have been amazing. Thank you so much.